I think there's a kind of a fundamental question that you want to ask yourself first, because there's a lot of different career paths in cyber, right? I think one of the realities is that people on the outside look at cyber as this one cohesive thing that you're trying to get into, and the reality is that there's many different branches, right? There's many different avenues and things that have to be secured. And I think one of the fundamental kind of I don't want to say divides, but often distinctions within cyber is, are you going for a technical type of role or a more non-technical type of role, right? There's all sorts of governance, compliance, you know, many different things that don't require you to really touch anything on a terminal window, right? It's just like spreadsheets, documents, et cetera. There's a lot of work in cyber that requires that. So I would say, for me, I was always more gravitated towards the technical, right? And so if you do that, if you want to go that route, I would say spend some time really understanding, you know, the computer network technology environment itself, right? Because before you can actually do technical security, you need to understand kind of, you know, how does a system function? How does a system communicate over the network? There's some kind of basic information technology principles that, you know, the rest of it is going to seem like very hard to grasp. So, I mean, I'm not one of those that says, oh, you have to start at the help desk and you have to work your way up, right? But I would say there's some basics that if you want to go on the technical side, you are going to need to understand certain things. Now, that being said, the world of technology is changing rapidly. And a friend of mine used to say, you know, one of the benefits of new things coming out, like, you know, cloud technology, Kubernetes, this, that, and the other is, you know, because these things are so new, if you go off and spend a year, 2 years really digging into this, really understanding it, all of a sudden now you have the same level of expertise as somebody who's been in the cyber field for like 20 years, but they only have 1 or 2 years of experience with this stuff, the same as you, because nobody has 20 years of experience with the cloud because it hasn't been around 20 years, right? So it allows you to play catch up a lot faster because all these things are new, right? We're all having to play catch up. So you know, as a security professional, for example, right, I never used, you know, I didn't do a whole lot with the cloud prior to probably just 2 or 3 years ago, right? So, you know, any of the folks who were like, hey, I really understand cloud identity and access management, or I really understand, like, you know, cloud networking, right? Well, you're in a much better position to do cybersecurity for the cloud because you understand how that works, right? So I think my advice, you know, would be first kind of look at your kind of your interest, your temperament. Like, do you want to go after the technical stuff, or do you want to stick to the non-technical? You know, there's a lot of things to learn about. There's so many different regulations. There's so many different things that you have to adhere to, and there's a lot of value in helping an organization be compliant, right? Like, so if that's something that's interesting to you, go for it. There's a huge need for that. If you're interested in the technical, then it's like, okay, learn the systems, learn a new system, focus on something that doesn't have 20 years of history, right? Like, don't go back and spend a ton of time on something that's super old. Just learn kind of why we evolved to where we are today, and then focus on the new thing. And pretty soon you'll be, you know, very up to speed on that and able to jump in and have that expertise. So that would kind of be my thing, is first, look inside yourself, ask yourself the questions of what you really want to get into there, recognizing that there's a lot of different areas. And, you know, maybe you have a software development background and you want to get into cyber. Man, AppSec, application security, is huge. That's definitely a very important area. So, you know, all these different kind of things that I would say for somebody who wants to get in. If you're, you know, have very little to no experience, I would encourage you to find a place where, and you know, you can jump in as like a tier 1 analyst, for example, a tier 1 SOC analyst, go work for an MSSP or something like that. It's going to be a tough job. You kind of got to pay your dues at first, but like, you'll start to see kind of how some of these things work. You know, pay attention to all the training. You know, some of the certifications can be helpful, but honestly, like, it's more just like book knowledge. You really need to get into it and do it yourself.